the one thing we actually don't have a debate about is the need for infrastructure to ensure sustainable growth in sub-Saharan Africa.
I do not think today that we would have, if we had been closer to infrastructure and ancillary infrastructure that we needed, we would probably never have done a 310 megawatt wind power plant. The decision to go as big as that was precisely decided on the fact that we had to build the infrastructure.
When you invest in a project, you're not looking at the period up to financial close. You're looking at the entire concession period.
Our biggest challenge in East Africa, and indeed the whole of Africa, is creating an environment where we can produce goods and services at a globally competitive level.
We saw Egypt as a great place to go into to sponsor local management, give them the capital to bring these mega projects online, be it both in energy and the petrochemicals.
What should we be building and who's going to own it, who's going to pay for it? Because when we think about infrastructure, it's port, rail, road, power, it's everything.
If you want to develop infrastructure in Africa, we should stop always wanting to count on government and expect government to build things for us. If you're an investor and you understand Africa and you understand that there are limitations in what you can ask the government, what you need from government is support. You want the regulatory framework to support you. You want the government to be able to change certain things to accommodate your investment, but to keep asking for, I'm putting this there, so you have to build the road for me, you have to put the substation for me, you have to do that for me, becomes sometimes, it's a big demand.
When you're analyzing your risks, you will analyze your risks starting from the development phase to the operation phase. And in each area, you identify and you mitigate risks. As a developer in the African continent, it's a reality that there are certain skills that will be limited. So when it comes to, say, the operation phase, I know what risk I'm going to face. And what I do, or what I would advise my company to do, is that we always try to outsource the O&M function to an entity that has the capacity.
As has been said, Africa's infrastructure needs are huge. Now, if we're going to rely on governments to solve them, the reality is that it will just not happen. If you look at the fiscal deficits of many African countries, there's a huge deficit, and there are huge compelling needs on basic things like education, health, etc. So the reality is that even if we sat here and said, let government do it, it will just not happen. To your question, who should do it? My experience has been that if the user is the private sector, the preference is for the private sector to provide it. Private sector wants to deal with private sector, and there's huge profit to be made if you're able to create that linkage.
When we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about building something that's generational, you need very patient capital. But a lot of individuals or entities or institutions that control that patient capital has checklists. Oh, if I put that money there, what's the likelihood I'm going to get it back? What's the likelihood of default? What's the likelihood that there is a legal framework that's going to protect me if things go sideways? And that's part of the whole sponsor in the local markets. It's key that those sponsors are very much attuned. They don't need the government for the money. They need the government for the support to say, yes, this law, this regulation, this protection is going to be there.